In 2019, a couple named Alex and Jamie decided to spend a weekend in the Adirondack Mountains, a place they had visited numerous times. Both were seasoned campers with extensive experience in the wilderness. The Adirondacks offered a perfect mix of stunning lakes and dense forests, making it an ideal camping destination. They had enjoyed many memorable trips there, but their final outing became a nightmare. Alex and Jamie chose a remote spot far from any trails or roads, relishing the tranquility. They set up camp by a secluded lake and kept a fire going. The nearest trail was 2 kilometers through thick woods, and it was another kilometer to the nearest road. Earlier that day, they had met another camper named Sarah from Australia. Sarah planned to sleep in her tent a bit further along the shore. Alex and Jamie invited her to join them by their fire, and the three of them spent the evening sharing stories and a bottle of whiskey. Sarah, a seasoned traveler herself, recounted tales of her adventures in the outback, while Alex and Jamie shared their own experiences from various national parks. As dusk approached, the atmosphere began to change. They started hearing strange, indistinct murmurs coming from the forest behind them. It wasn't completely dark yet, so they assumed it might be other campers, or perhaps some hikers passing through. Despite this, all three agreed the sounds resembled human voices. As night fell, Sarah decided to head back to her tent before it got too dark. Alex and Jamie, now alone, kept the fire going, trying to ignore the increasingly unsettling sounds. The voices, still indistinct and unintelligible, seemed to come from just beyond the tree line. They stayed up late, tending the fire, but the voices only grew louder and more persistent. The couple exchanged nervous glances, their earlier bravado waning as the eerie sounds continued. Eventually, they decided to put out the fire and retreat to their tent. They scanned the area with their flashlight, but saw nothing unusual. The night seemed to close in around them, the dense forest now a menacing presence. Around 2:30 a.m., they finally lay down to rest, only to be disturbed shortly after by the sound of footsteps near their campsite. The steps came from the dense woods behind them, an area no person could easily navigate. They hoped it was just a deer or some other animal, as the Adirondacks were home to many wildlife species, including timid deer and elusive bobcats. The footsteps circled the campsite, then approached their tent before retreating back into the woods. Jamie clutched Alex's arm, her breath shallow and fast, as they listened intently, hearts pounding. About 10 minutes later, the footsteps returned, accompanied by the same eerie voices, now speaking loudly and incoherently. The voices didn't resemble any language Alex or Jamie had ever heard, and they seemed to be talking over each other, creating a chaotic, disturbing noise. The voices moved from the fire pit to the tent, standing just outside for a few moments before falling silent. The intruders then disappeared into the woods, leaving Alex and Jamie paralyzed with fear. The couple lay there in the dark, every rustle and snap of a twig magnified in their minds. They remained awake, too terrified to move, until the first light of dawn. Exhausted, they finally fell asleep. The sunlight filtering through the tent offered little comfort. Gathering their belongings, they decided never to return to that part of the Adirondacks. Their experience left them shaken, but they were grateful for their decision to stay silent and avoid drawing attention to themselves during the night. As they packed up, they couldn't help but glance nervously at the tree line, half expecting to see someone, or something, watching them. On their way out, they ran into Sarah, who had also heard the strange voices during the night. She looked as shaken as they felt, confirming that they had not imagined the ordeal. They all agreed to report the incident to the local ranger station, though they doubted it would make any difference. As they drove away, the dense forest seemed to close in behind them, swallowing their campsite and the eerie events of the night. The Adirondacks, once a place of peace and adventure, now held a dark, unsettling memory that none of them would soon forget. Have you ever felt like You were being watched in the woods? Like something was out there with you? Nancy Williams and Matt Johnson, friends from Boulder, Colorado, experienced that feeling in the most terrifying way possible. For years, they enjoyed hiking the beautiful trails around their town. But one day, they found something that made them wish they had never gone into the woods. On October 12th, Nancy decided to hike the Flatirons, just 3 miles west of Boulder. She had hiked these trails many times before, but this time something felt wrong. As she walked, she found animal bones and abandoned camping gear scattered along the path. Stranger still were the odd symbols and animal parts arranged in weird formations. Determined to show someone, Nancy brought her friend Eric the next day. As the sun began to set, they discovered something even more disturbing: a severed rabbit head and a pentagram surrounded by rabbit legs. These gruesome symbols hadn't been there before. They quickly took pictures and decided to leave before it got completely dark. But as they walked back, they realized they were lost. The trail seemed different, unfamiliar. With only their phone flashlights to guide them, they felt an uneasy sense of being watched. Rustling noises to their right, despite the still air, heightened their fear. They quickened their pace, hoping to find their way back to Nancy's car. Then, a deep, horrific scream pierced the night, sounding neither human nor animal. They ran, Nancy resisting the urge to look back. Eric did, and he saw a large, shadowy figure following them. It was too big to be a person. By sheer luck, they found the car and escaped, leaving whatever pursued them behind. Back home, Nancy's research revealed that the Flatirons had a dark history. Cult practices, murders, and disappearances had been reported over the years. This only confirmed her decision never to return. Meanwhile, in the forests of eastern Poland, 2 friends were hiking in an area once controlled by Soviet forces when they discovered strange chimney-like pipes sticking out of the ground. Curious, they found a doorway hidden behind bushes, covered by a metal lid. Beneath it, they uncovered a chilling piece of history: an abandoned bunker. The maze-like tunnels and corridors were unsettling, their walls marked with graffiti translating to "help" in Polish. Curiosity drove them deeper. The decay grew worse, the air thick with a sewage stench. A single shoe stuck in the sludge suggested someone had left in a hurry. The bunker, likely used during the Cold War, felt abandoned in a rush. The friends couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Eventually, they found a large room with a strange machine at its center. The more they explored, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. They left, haunted by the bunker's dark past. In 2018, Jake, an avid hiker, faced his own terror. Visiting his cousin in rural Maine, he set out on a hike. The trail was secluded, winding through dense woods. Unexpectedly, Jake stumbled upon a new-looking backpack emitting a foul odor. As he gathered the courage to open it, a voice from the woods startled him. A large man in a dirty jacket emerged, claiming the backpack. Jake, sensing something was off, apologized and moved on. The man's explanation, that the bag contained his hunting kill, didn't add up. Fresh kills were usually stored in coolers, not backpacks, and the smell was too strong. Jake hurried down the trail, unease growing. As he tried to call his cousin, his phone had no reception. The sense of being followed became real when he saw the man stalking him from a distance. Without thinking, Jake ran. He found an abandoned property and hid inside an old house under a cot. The man entered, searching room by room. Breathless and terrified, Jake listened as the man left. After half an hour, Jake emerged, knowing he had to reach a road before dark. He ran until he found one and hitched a ride back to his cousin's house. There, he reported the encounter to the local police. Though the contents of the backpack were never confirmed, the rotting smell and the man's behavior suggested the worst. He was likely disposing of a body, and Jake had narrowly escaped becoming his next victim. Nancy and Eric decided to visit the Flatirons once more, despite the fear that had lingered since their last encounter. They wanted closure, to understand what they had seen. Armed with better flashlights and a sense of determination, they returned to the trail where they had first seen the disturbing symbols. The forest was eerily quiet as they walked, the usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves absent. The trail looked different again, more overgrown and wild. They found the spot where the pentagram and rabbit parts had been, but everything was gone. No trace remained, as if it had never been there. They ventured deeper, hoping to find some explanation. As they walked, they felt the same uneasy sensation of being watched. The trees seemed to close in around them, and the air grew colder. Suddenly, they heard whispers, faint and indistinct, coming from all directions. Panic set in, and they decided to turn back, but the trail had changed again, leading them in circles. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Nancy's flashlight flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Just when they thought they were hopelessly lost, they saw a faint light ahead. Desperate, they followed it and emerged onto a road. The light was from a car driven by a park ranger who had been searching for them. Relieved, they got into the car and were driven back to safety. The ranger listened to their story with a grave expression. He explained that the area had a history of strange occurrences, dating back to when indigenous tribes lived there. The symbols they saw were part of old rituals meant to ward off evil spirits. Nancy and Eric never returned to the Flatirons again. The experience left them with more questions than answers, and a lingering sense of dread whenever they thought about those woods. Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden beneath the beauty of the mountains and forests we so often explore? While they offer breathtaking views and a sense of peace, they can also harbor sinister secrets that are better left undiscovered. Remember, the wilderness holds more than just nature. Sometimes it hides the unknown and the terrifying. If you enjoyed this story and want more chilling tales, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content that will keep you on the edge of your seat.